who's ever available to take care of the clock. It's considered a designated clock taken care of.
Call this work session to order, Wednesday, February 19th, time is 1 p.m. Open it up for visitor comments. Okay, so we're gonna get a presentation by Tokala Properties on proposed riverfront development. Dwight Untie.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, great. I will try to position myself appropriately.
Yeah,
So-
click it
Click it on.
on the side.
Oh, a power button.
Yeah, on the left side.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to update you on a couple of things. So here's kind of how I see the agenda for this presentation. I'd like to reintroduce you briefly to who the development team is and what our experience level is, just because I know not all the counselors have heard a prior presentation. Brief description of what we see the mission for this project. I want to present and discuss with you an updated site concept plan. Briefly summarize the public benefits that we see of the proposed project. I want to definitely review the development challenges and talk about some solutions that we see. That's going to include a review of a brief review of the project history and a discussion of actions that have been taken to date. And then I want to finish up by discussing with you the current status of the project and our recommendation for next steps. So I'm just going to jump in, and I'll move rather quickly. If somebody wants to interrupt me, feel free. So the project team is led by Tokala Properties and architectural design work by Studio C and a hotel partner and hospitality group called Embarcadero. Oh, no picture, huh? Let's see if that's gonna. Let's see. There we go. I guess it's just taking a moment to load up. So just real quickly, Tokala Properties, we're an Oregon-based development, construction, property management, and investment company. We have over 35 years of experience. We focus primarily on multifamily housing, mixed use, and hotel development. We've completed over 2,000 units of housing, multiple mixed-use projects, and recently opened 2 boutique hotel projects. We're long-term investors with an emphasis on quality and durability, and we've been focused since 2008, pretty much laser-focused on mixed-use development and what we define as re-emerging historic Main Street districts throughout the state, and definitely classify St. Helens as having a re-emerging historic Main Street district. And we're extremely experienced in the formation and execution of successful public-private partnerships. Just going to run through some quick list of prior public-private partnerships. This is Third Central, a mixed-use development in downtown Gresham, Public Partners or Metro in the city of Gresham. This is our Fourth Main project, which maybe the picture will come up, a gorgeous project. This project was recognized in 2014 as the best Main Street development in the state. It also received a recognition from the Portland Business Journal as the best public-private partnership of 2014. This is a public-private partnership that we completed in the city of Forest Grove. It's called Jesse Quinn. It's a 70-unit, mixed-unit use project with ground floor retail and housing above.
No pictures, huh?
No pictures. Or maybe they'll come along. And our current project, I'd really like you to see these pictures simply because they're similar, the setting, a riverfront setting, similar to the circumstances here at St. Helens. So let's just see what happens. In any event, this is a public-private partnership with the City of Independence. It includes development of a 75-room boutique hotel and restaurant, which is now complete and fully activated. I want to show you a picture of it. And an adjoining 124 units of multifamily housing, all positioned along the riverfront, the Willamette Riverfront in Independence. Let's see if it'll come up here. It's funny these come up. Were you flashing back on that? Okay, just want to make sure. Real quick, then I'll just move on to sharing with you a little bit of information about the design team, Studio C Architecture that we work with. These are some of the projects that they specifically have designed for us. Jesse Quinn, the Independence Hotel and Independence Landing Apartments. They have a depth of experience so as well. This is a Hyatt Hotel project they developed in Eugene, Oregon. They were involved in the design and implementation of the Bellevue Towers in Bellevue, Washington. And they've done extensive work for Adidas on their headquarters facility. So they have a multiplicity of design skills. Embarcadero Hospitality Group is the hotel partner that we work with. They're currently a fellow owner and manager of both of the boutique hotels that we've developed. They have extensive experience, again, no pictures, but Canary Pier in Astoria, you may recognize as a project they worked on, the Residence Inn in Hillsborough, and a variety of other high-profile hotel projects. So I just want to share with you again, this is a repeat for many of you, but this is how we see the mission here in St. Helens. Create a transformative mixed-use development that will reconnect the community of St. Helens with its riverfront heritage, solidify the reemergence of historic downtown St. Helens as a vibrant and thriving center of the community, and catalyze further economic development activity in the downtown district. So what I want to do next is share with you a little contrast and comparison between what the original site concept plan for this project was and what the most recent and current concept plan is that we've arrived at. So the original site design concept from day one, early on, was a phase 1 project that included a 75-room hotel, and then a phase 2 component, which was 160 units of multifamily housing and 4-story elevator service buildings. That site plan looked like this, as you may or may not recall. It's been some time, but you had a U-shaped hotel of 75 rooms that's in a tight U. It's shoved up as close as possible to the retail core of the historic Main Street district, and then to the south of the site was laid out in 3 large buildings, multifamily housing units. The updated and refined site plan that we've arrived at, which we're very excited about, changes the formula and creates a phase 1 that is a mixed-use building of 52 units of multifamily housing over ground floor retail. So it's a 4-story building, 3 stories of housing, ground floor retail services. And then the phase 2 would be the destination resort hotel, much larger and more significant in size, 118 rooms. That would include a restaurant, fitness center, rooftop deck, spa facilities, etc. Let's look at that. So here's the updated site concept plan, and as you can see, you have a mixed-use building here, which is tight with the existing retail core. And then you have, instead of a sharp right-hand turn of Strand Street back to First Street, you have a more gentle and curving and more appropriate connection back to First. And then the hotel is much larger and has been repositioned to be in the prominent point area of the riverfront. So I want to discuss with you what we see as the comparative advantages of this updated site plan versus what we originally started on. Here we go. So the new site plan really enhances the retail core, because what it's effectively going to do is it's going to extend the retail core along Strand Street. Because the entire lower level of the first mixed-use building there will be ground floor retail, and it's just going to be right alongside the existing retail core. It allows better alignment of Strand Street by eliminating that impediment of that sharp right-hand turn. If you see in the prior photo how Strand was forced to just turn right back here in a sharp right angle, leaving a cutoff piece of difficult property to use, and this kind of is uncomfortable road condition. Under the new plan, the way that Strand Street is aligned is very similar to what was in your original concept and vision plans for the road alignment for this project. This is going to more quickly add residents living in your downtown. Remember, under the original site plan, we would have done the mixed use, done the hotel project first, and then subsequently done a phase 2 apartment project. Under this scenario, where we're going to do the housing component first, it's going to add immediately, or certainly much more quickly, new residents living in the downtown, and that's critically important because that's what's going to help catalyze and activate the retail core and create more vibrancy on the streets downtown. The other important factor here from a development perspective with the new site plan is that mixed-use housing projects are much more financeable, much more readily financeable than a large boutique hotel in an unproven market. And the importance of this is to get the first phase up and demonstrate its success, and that creates momentum towards success with the hotel. When you take a look at the hotel itself, it really, by repositioning the hotel to this location on the site, it really enhances the Riverview amenities for the guests of both the hotel and the restaurant, and it does a much better job of connecting those guests to the riverfront experience. It's a more appealing design because it just speaks, the design speaks naturally to that prominent point along the riverfront boardwalk. Other important factor here is that this reduces the total project size a substantial amount, and you can see it in the way the second or the updated plan lays out. You'll notice that additional lots have been created for future development. And I think that's going to be extremely important because when we do the mixed-use project and the hotel, that's going to add a lot of value to the subsequent land phases of this development. And I think the net result is going to be that future public financial participation is not going to, should not be required in those additional future sites. I think you could successfully sell those to the development community as long as we come in first and prove that this is a viable market for these uses.
Mike?
Yes.
I think you basically said that you would entertain some questions as we move along.
Absolutely.
On the upgraded design, the
Yes.
current design, can you elaborate a bit on the dashed line that that's on First Street, I believe, and somewhat follows the road? Do you follow what I'm saying? There's a dashed line in a green area?
Yeah, you know, and I'm not 100% sure that I know. I think it might be approximating the base of the cliff area. I'm not, you're talking about this line right here?
That's correct.
I think, well, first of all, I think it's a topo line, topography line from a, this was probably overlaid on a topo map.
Okay.
And this looks to me like it was a indicator line of the topography in that area.
That's what I assumed. Thank you.
Yeah. So really, the anticipated project outcomes remain generally the same, even under this revised site plan. So let's think through what those are, because it's pretty important for the community. This development is going to increase and enhance pedestrian and bike connectivity to the riverfront. The hotel in particular is going to bring thousands of visitors to St. Helens throughout the year. The hotel provides a jumping off point for people to explore St. Helens and the surrounding environment. The mixed-use project is going to add new residents living in your downtown. That's extremely important because it's those residents that spend their disposable income on local goods and services and help boost and catalyze further activity in your downtown. It's going to create jobs, both during the construction period and permanent jobs, particularly the hotel employs an enormous number of people. It enhances pedestrian activity and vibrancy on the streetscape for downtown. You can pretty much count on that. The other interesting thing that these projects have proven to do is they tend to enhance the hours of activity in your downtown. So rather than everything sort of rolling up at 4 or 5 o'clock and maybe there's just 1 or 2 retailers that might be open or a restaurant, it tends to push activity deep into the evening hours, which makes it a much more vibrant and interesting fabric in the downtown core. Importantly, and I've discussed this with you before, it's amazing with these projects that let's back up. Can somebody tell me when the last time a brand new building was built in downtown? Brand spanking new, not a renovation. Can you think back and remember? I don't know, but you live here. When was it? 20 years ago? 10 years ago? 20 years ago?
There's a duplex over on 3rd
Third Street.
Okay.
I'd say the condos down here would be about the newest.
Yeah. Okay, so my point is that it has an amazing psychological and real impact on the community and the people that live here when they start seeing investment and construction activity and a significant new building rising out of the ground. It's invigorating, it's encouraging, it helps others take more risk and be willing to make more investment once they see that type of activity underway. As far as the straight economics, the hotel is going to boost lodging tax revenues to the city substantially. And of course, what we're going to effectively do here is bring these properties back onto the property tax rolls. So it's going to affect your property tax base. I want to just be honest with you, the challenges still remain here the same as they were when I first met you and had a chance to speak with you. And let's be reminded of what they are. You know, there's market obstacles that are real to producing these type of pioneering projects, and here are the conditions. There's a lack of comparable properties by which a developer, appraiser, or lender can establish value. You can't come into downtown St. Helens and find a comparable mixed-use development that you could use to measure value. That makes it very, very difficult in terms of financing these assets. The prevailing rental rates in the market for multifamily and room rates for the existing hotel inventory are too low to support new construction. That's just the reality. There's a difficulty of measuring demand for this product type, these product types, because they're not really yet available in this marketplace. So there's, you know, how do you measure demand? There's a limited number of lenders that are willing to participate on pioneering projects. Equity investors are reluctant because of the potential for lower returns in an unproven market. And the overall perception of the development and investment community is that these types of projects are higher risk than more conventional marketplaces. So those are just real challenges and obstacles that stand in the way of any developer wanting to come in and do the type of project we're proposing. And so you see, what the impact of this is that the construction costs for the desired amenities that we want in the community, the hotel and this new wonderful multifamily mixed-use development, the cost of producing that's going to exceed what the market value of the finished product is by a substantial amount. It just is. And it's that gap that's created between the cost to produce these amenities in an unproven market and what they're going to be appraised at and the assumed value when they're finished. You have a gap, and that gap has to be closed in order for the projects to proceed.
One thing on comparability and position. Around the corner, we have a big industrial site. What does that do for the value of this property for housing?
Well, it's a completely different use.
No, I'm asking, there it is, whatever it's used for, what's its effect on the housing and the hotel right next to it? That's the question. I know it's being used for different things,
Well,
but how does it affect the housing?
Is this an industrial site that's already been developed and is in active use and is a job generator?
No, it's a job loss. It was a big paper mill. Now it's going down the tube. So it's going to have to be repurposed into something, so it's unknown, but it's a huge industrial site.
Well, it's probably not much of a benefit on the value of these properties at this point then. I mean, one thing, and I think we all do this, I was going to say one thing I do as a developer, but I bet everybody in this room does it. If you drive through a community you've never been in before, or maybe it's one you have been in before, and you see vacant buildings, boarded up buildings, buildings in a state of non-use, what does that make you feel about what's happening and what's the vitality and vibrancy in this area? So, you know, the downside of closures like that often is that it's sort of a physical signal to, particularly to developers that look at the landscape very quickly to measure what's happening in the community. It could be a negative signal. On the other hand, I think you could pitch it as a city as, well, this is a great future industrial site that's liable to attract a major employer and could be a positive amenity for the community down the road.
We just had a swap meeting on those properties, all the properties, so. And that's what we come to the conclusion, multiple cities, counties, and port
Yeah.
all together.
Yeah.
I know you're getting down to the bottom line there. So we're in an opportunity zone. What do you know about opportunity zone?
Quite a bit.
So my understanding is that that helps close the gap, the opportunity zone, through the project itself. You could like build that first building, you could end up selling it for profit and roll it into the hotel. You do that up to 10 years, and then you are tax exempt from at the 10-year mark on that first amount that you invested.
Correct.
So that closes that gap. We've all talked about the boardwalk, which I didn't see going through on the other side of that hotel, which is gonna be a easement no matter what for city,
Mhm.
for citizens. We have talked about us putting that in and building a nice park, which will enhance the value of that property. Just taking down the fence and cleaning that area up. I don't know, you haven't been down here in a while, but really improved the look of that. And it's all about presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be straight up with you.
Yeah.
Those tools you're talking about, those actions you're talking about,
Another new.
they have some effect on the gap, but they don't close the gap. And the thing about opportunity zone money is that it depends on whether you're gonna use it or not. As a developer, we use all privately financed equity and debt. We're not gonna access opportunity funds. It doesn't fit our investor criteria and their need. So a lot of our.
But isn't it an opportunity zone and investment in itself, that you take a pool of money and put it into?
You can.
Yes.
Yeah, opportunity zone, I would define as one tool of many that a developer could utilize for part or all of their development financing. I think you would be hard pressed to find someone to use opportunity financing for this entire riverfront development.
It's
Maybe
a big
piece of it.
project.
Maybe a
It's
piece of it. Yeah, our
long
project,
chunk of property.
the project we've proposed here, which is just phase one and phase two of multiple lots, is probably around $45 million of investment. So I think those are tools that are good, and certainly those are the kind, we look at vertical housing tax credits, we look at what can be done with urban renewal, we look at if there's an opportunity zone. We're looking at every possible source of funding to help mitigate that gap we can. But that gap's real, and it isn't gonna go away just from opportunity funding, because the cost of construction has risen so dramatically. I mean, we're active in the marketplace. We've got a very active construction project right now in Independence, and the cost of construction has moved up and continues to move up dramatically. And if you look at the rents, so our cost to construct these facilities in St. Helens is exactly the same cost as it could cost us in downtown Portland. But the rent levels I can achieve and the proven room rental rates for a hotel in St. Helens are here, and in Portland they're here. So why, as a developer, would I come to St. Helens to build something that costs as much as it costs in Portland, but has, 50% of the rent level? You don't, unless you can form a public-private partnership and try to squeeze that cap down.
I would just beg anybody to find a chunk of property that size with that little bit of environmental issues, because it is little on that chunk of property over the grand scheme of things in Portland. On the Columbia River.
Mary, you're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons we're
We've been
here.
having to think for our citizens. We're getting bombarded out there, so we're trying to look at all aspects of
Right.
the project.
Well, when I get to my conclusion, maybe
Okay.
I'll answer some of your additional questions, but,
Probably will.
possibly I will.
Yeah.
But, look, I'm gonna say something very difficult to you. And, it's gonna be, but maybe you already know, maybe you don't. You have a rare and incredible, unique piece of property. That's why I'm here. How come it isn't already developed? How come you haven't had 50 developers lining up if it's just such a great waterfront, unbelievable waterfront parcel? And there shouldn't be any financial gap because it's just a great, you would have 50 guys here lined up trying to buy this site from you. And the reason you don't, and it's not you, I'm not
Yeah,
pointing
yeah.
at you,
I
I'm
was
just
gonna
trying
say,
to.
I personally have had 3 reapproach me, and I know Council Locke has had some. too.
Great,
Yeah.
and so you're gonna see at my conclusion, I'm gonna encourage you to go back out in the marketplace and seek a developer. So, you know, you may or may not see us again, but that, and I'm gonna explain to you why I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But I just want you to, whether we do the deal or not, I just want you as a community to have a realistic outlook on what you have. You have an incredibly valuable resource in the form of an amazing waterfront parcel that's adjoining an existing historic downtown. But it's gonna take a lot of public effort, a lot of public investment, combined with significant private investment in order to actually bring to fruition the kind of development you wanna see. With some exceptions, if you wanna just release the site for a large single-family home builder to just develop single-family homes, you can probably cut a deal tomorrow. But is that what you want for your waterfront? Is that, I don't think that fits the vision of what you all have been working on for a long time.
You're right about that. I think I can speak for the entire council on that.
So, to meet these challenges and to close that gap, then we can, you know, we'll further discuss the size of it, that sort of thing. But as you know, I'm here to tell you that the only way I've found to be able to do it is to form public-private partnerships. And I think any developer, us or any other qualified developer, is gonna propose a public-private partnership as a method to move forward, because it's gonna be required. And you're gonna use a disposition and development agreement to distill the agreement between the private entity and the public entity to writing. And there's risk strategies that I'm encouraging you to consider as you move forward here. You need to make certain from your standpoint that whoever you select, that you select a developer who's got public-private partnership experience. Most developers are quick hitters. They want to move in, make their investment, and get out of Dodge. And they do not have the patience nor the skill set to engage in an effective public-private partnership, because it requires public outreach, it requires patience, it requires negotiation, it requires compromise, the things that developers just aren't typically cut out to do. I think you want to select a developer, if at all possible, who has a track record of long-term investment. If you get involved with a speculative developer who wants to build and break, you're putting yourself at higher risk. And I think ultimately, the way you protect yourself as a city and a community is you bring in qualified third-party consultants that review any given development proposal and assess it in terms of what's going to be the return on investment for the community. And I've got risk mitigation strategies. When we go into these transactions, I only want to invest where there's strong community support for downtown revitalization. We're only going to go in if we can properly capitalize the transaction. And to us, that means not too much debt. Just like you wouldn't want too much debt on your own single-family home, for example. It's very important to us that the proposal we're working on is properly sized to fit the scope of the development and to match what the local demand is. And for us, we always approach projects as long-term investors, because we know the early years of return on these pioneering projects are low. It takes patience, it takes time to build the investment return. And as a long-term investor, we tend never to sell our assets. We're willing to live with that. So the project history, and I don't know that I really need to go over this much, but just I had done this as much for my own sake as anything. But, you know, we started in May 2017 when we responded to a request for qualification that the city issued. And in August 2017, we submitted our formal statement of qualifications, and we were then subsequently selected as a preferred developer. Then in January of 2018, we entered into the exclusive negotiating agreement. This is the period of time when the developer and the public entity can work together to negotiate forward what the agreement might look like. That expired, and there was a subsequent extension of it, but you know, here we are now in 2020, and there is no exclusive negotiating agreement in place. In other words, I have no real standing with you right now. I'm just here as a private developer who's been very passionate about this project. But actually, I'm not under an exclusive negotiating agreement with you. I just don't have any rights or standing with you. But I'm still here to share my thinking. So, that brings us up to today's presentation. And, it might seem like there's been very little action on this development over time, but that's really not the case. I mean, since we've been involved, there's been extensive due diligence, including detailed reviews of all the public records and plans and studies and reports, et cetera, that have gone into bringing the project to where it is today. We've done a significant amount of site analysis and conceptual design work with our architectural team. There's been coordination and execution of market feasibility analysis. There's been numerous meetings with staff and consultants and other third parties. We've participated in multiple public outreach meetings, or at least presentations before the council and other groups. There's been a lot of contact with a variety of local stakeholders. Our hotel group and consultant group has spent a lot of time meeting people in the community and talking to them about the hotel and what its impacts might be and how they could work together. We've met with county and state representatives, multiple. We've continued to meet and discuss with our investors and our lenders to talk about how this project could be structured in terms of the private financing that we would need to bring to the table. And of course, most recently in December of this year, we went and took an approach to this new site plan, and we said to ourselves, okay, look, exclusive negotiating agreement's over. We don't have any right to develop this, but here's the overriding problem. The overriding problem is that you need to identify and secure funding for the public infrastructure required to propel development forward on this site. That's been the number one item that has put the project for periods of time on hold. And I think I'd like to tie my other comments related to that into this next slide, if I may. So here's the current status. Simply stated, further pre-development preparations are largely on hold until such time as a source of funds for public infrastructure is identified and secured, and a timeline for infrastructure construction is defined. One thing with developers is we want a level of certainty. It's very hard for us to start investing money and spending money out with our consultants and our design team, et cetera, when it's uncertain when this project is really going to be able to come to fruition. We need to see some certainty, and I think I speak probably for almost any developer looking at this site for the kinds of uses we're talking about. They've got to know that you've identified the source of funds for public infrastructure, that you've secured those funds, and that you've established a timeline for when this work on public infrastructure is going to commence. And when I said I want to tie that back into my previous comments, with that concern in mind is what led us to just this December to sit down again with our design team and just say, okay, look, since infrastructure is the problem, is there anything we can do to redesign this site that would allow the infrastructure to come into place in smaller chunks so that the city doesn't have to bear as large of a financial burden in terms of trying to put all the infrastructure along the entire riverfront? And so I'm going to take the liberty of flipping back a couple slides here. I want to go back to this one. You'll see that this site concept plan, you'll notice how the Strand Road there is in gray, and then the balance of the street system down the site is in white. Is everyone with me on that? We've designed this such that if the city can come up with public infrastructure to complete Strand Road up to this point and provide the utilities up to this point, that we should be able to serve both the hotel and the new mixed-use development and have the public infrastructure for now temporarily terminate right here. I know you probably can't. Can you all see that, what I'm talking about? As opposed to the original site plan, which had the apartment building spread further down the site to the south substantially, then that would have meant that infrastructure would have had to be constructed for a much longer distance into the site. So this site-specific plan that we're presenting here is intended to try to address from our standpoint, come up with something we could do from our standpoint to help address this overriding issue of where are the funds for the significant public infrastructure that needs to occur. Get back here to this slide right here. So here's what our overall recommendation is for you today. Given the project history and the current status, we believe the following next steps will be required in order to drive forward a successful redevelopment of the St. Helens waterfront. Here they are. Number one, and they're pretty much in order of priority, not completely, but one, we need to identify and secure funds for public needed infrastructure. It's got to be mission one for the city in trying to propel this development forward, whether with us or with other developers. Two, you need to subdivide this property now. Our plan we showed multiple potential for multiple individual lots across this site. Because of the rules regarding the Bureau of Labor and Industry and prevailing wage requirements, you would be very, very wise to proceed with the subdivision of this property much sooner than later. And it's important too, because of reflecting back on what I was sharing earlier, what is going to happen, and certainly happened in Independence, and I have no reason to doubt it wouldn't happen here, is as soon as you lay out 8 or 9 lots, and then you have a developer such as ourselves activate the first 2 lots and get improvements up in the air, and they're activated, and they're occupied, and they're successful, you've added tremendous value to the remaining lots. And it gives, and the other thing I like, just regardless of the Bureau of Labor and Industry and those kind of questions, by having multiple lots, you enhance the opportunity to attract a variety of different developers. And frankly, it's probably better for the overall riverfront plan over a long horizon that you have multiple creative, different development groups come in and do different things on different sites. You're going to get a much healthier and vibrant mix of uses, and you're going to, you're not going to have the same architect design every single building across the site, so you've got some advantages there. The infrastructure not only needs to be, the funds for it not only need to be identified and a timeline established, but if at all possible, you need to commence the design of that infrastructure and the construction of it. My recommendation now is that following your identification of public funds and securing them for infrastructure, then you go back out to the development community with a fresh request for qualifications. You kind of start all over again, but that's kind of the situation that it's in. And there's no reason to go out for another request for qualifications right now, because you're going to be stymied for months and months and months and months over the infrastructure issue. And so these, I believe it's in your best interest to pursue the next steps in that order. And then, of course, once you submit your fresh request for qualifications to the development community, hopefully you'll have multiple developers. We'll certainly respond. We know what we want to do here. Then you'll select the most qualified developer, and you'll enter into exclusive negotiation with them. Out of the negotiation will ultimately come a written disposition and development agreement that'll identify all the terms of the development for both the public and private partners. And then you'll be able to proceed with development. I didn't mean to be argumentative, but I'm just passionate about it, and I really want you as a community to be successful here, and it takes a degree of realism mixed together with promise. You got the promise, man, big time. You got it in spades, and we just need to tie it together with some of the development realities that face most of us as developers and contractors.
Well, I think we as a council need to be able to prioritize just a little bit as far as we have a lot of properties. We're property poor. We we need to decide which ones maybe we need to let go of in order to invest in, especially the downtown being the most important property that we will never just get rid of without having control of, you know, the destiny of, this is gonna be the lifeblood of our community right here. And the only thing I was disappointed in the presentation was more units. I'd like, but there's all those other parcels that could potentially be more units. 30,000 units were needed last year, the year before, when we met 17,000. I look at Hillsborough and all that, and they're UGB, they're right up to Banks. I mean, they're there. I mean, where else are we gonna go, in the mountains? I
Well,
wanna
what's
talk about infrastructure, that's a whole nother.
No, but I think what's gonna happen here is, you notice that one of the points I had under strategies of risk mitigation, I shared what I think you need to do for mitigation, and I shared what we do for mitigation. One of the things we do to mitigate risk is in this pioneering project, there are no similar mixed-use developments like we're proposing here in your downtown. There's no way to measure whether that's gonna be successful. We believe it's gonna be successful, but we have to convince lenders, we have to convince our investors, and I have to be convinced as a lead investor that this is gonna work. And so what's the smart thing to do? Let's start with a building of this size. And I'll put it to you in a reverse way. The very worst consequence for everybody in the room is to have some developer come in and stub their toe on phase one, and you got a half-empty, unsuccessful building, they go into bankruptcy, and you got a big eyesore sitting on your waterfront. You do not want that to happen. So scope and scale of the first phase, let's do it at a size that we're gonna hit a grand slam. And when we do, then that creates inertia and energy towards being able to better finance the hotel. You know, lenders might not see another hotel of comparable nature in the market, but they're gonna see this new mixed use, it's full, the rents are great, and there's new businesses opening downtown, there's some increased vibrancy. They get the story, and we have to create the story. So, and then I think there's plenty of room with these additional sites for a lot more housing. We might well be interested in being a player on that additional housing.
But just not to interrupt, but I like the idea for me about having it kind of more clearly in phases for a chance for course correction and for adjustments based on the market,
Yeah.
rather than committing everything up front. You know, you can still make it all match, but really charming communities are ones that were built over 30 years, not all in a day.
Absolutely.
So I think that that might be an easier pill to figure out what works for a community a little bit at a time.
To be honest, in your answer, 2 years ago, you came in, gave a presentation, and then your next steps was quite different from the next steps that you have here.
Right.
Why is that?
I'll be straight up because, right or wrong, I was so impressed with the grant application for the federal funds for financing that you had assembled. I read that thing front to back,
Jenny's out there,
back to
she-
front. I don't, and I know John worked, I know a whole bunch of people in this room probably worked their buns off. It was darn impressive. You had every legislator support you needed. You had the right plan. You were ticking off all the things that you have to hit to solve the equation for the grant reviewer, and I believed it. And so at that time, my next steps were, my thinking was, you guys are gonna get infrastructure money. I'm not gonna worry about it. Here's the next steps we need. Now, here we are. I don't know why that didn't work out, because that was a heck of a grant.
It sure was. I wanted to give money to it.
Yeah.
Just so impressed with it.
So unless there's other questions, that's all I've got for you right now.
I did have another question. If you can click back just I mean, I look at this property and I see, so keep going back to your, just with one more, there you go. If you go, which would be further south, because we're north and south on the river here.
Right.
We're in that bend. So towards, away from City Hall.
Mhm.
we own so much in-water property there too, where we can actually have marina moorage. You know, I mean, I really see this as being a destination point, like I said, with everything growing up so quickly and growing out their UGB so fastly, and it's hard to expand your UGB at the state level.
For sure.
It just is, unless you're Bend, and I don't know what power they have, but they just continue just to be able to do it because there's such a fast-growing city, and it just amazes me over there. But where you could have live in one of your rentals and have your boat down there in a slip.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think the opportunity here is just up top, and getting stuff over the water. Wow, I mean, if you can get even, you know, there's been quite a bit of talk with staff, et cetera, that, I mean, we would love to just see a dock, you know, near the hotel where someone can just walk out and just stand over the river. I mean, that is a powerful amenity in and of itself.
I like the expansion of the park. I do. You gave us more park space, and I like that.
Yep. It's great park space,
I
and
would
the
not-
park can be a real
Yep.
amenity for everyone. We'd like to do the project, but you need to kind of follow those steps, I think. And I think you need to reach back out to the development community for fresh proposals once you have that infrastructure equation more fully addressed. And,
Well, what I know, I'm just talking to the council here, not you, is that we had at least 3 more cuts of timber we could have done. And obviously, everything costs money nowadays, and how serious are we about moving forward on this property? And we also have 1 6-acre parcel and another, was it 20 out there on Millard Road? 6 on Jacobs Bluff. We've got timber. How serious are we? We know we want the industrial park and the RV park there as far as, and also industry coming in. And we know we want this for a fact. Those other 2 properties have been all over the place. And we have market that's halfway up. Well, I'm cutting one of, I think 4 or 5 is what Brent's presentation was. Our forester, and you know, I'm the type of person that sometimes, you know, we have to have a meeting or regroup and just talking about this stuff.
This is a discussion item.
Yeah, yeah, but I just want to bring it up now, Keith,
Right.
while it's on my mind, because we are, and I'm.
We're all
I'm-
thinking about it. Trust me.
I'm as bad, but this has been an issue for some time, this infrastructure. So, and yes, I think we all did really want that grant to go through. Jenny did write up a wonderful grant application.
best one I've ever
I
seen.
like this thought pattern though, because that infrastructure there is a lot easier to put in, that's for sure,
Yeah.
than what we're planning.
Yeah, there's a lot less of it. And I guess if I had another thought, final thought is, and this affects me just as much as it affects you guys too. We all have to be aware that real estate's cyclical. We're in a very good cycle right now with obviously
Mhm.
very attractive low interests, a lot of investment capital. And, I want to encourage you to make the right decision for your community, whatever that is, but I do think your decisions need to be fairly prompt, because it is a possibility that this current cycle will pass you by.
And you know, and you talked about the patience that your company's used to dealing with. You know how government is slow, and that's why I'm talking about it right now, is because even if we said, yeah, we're still not gonna be ready for 6, 9 months down the road. Seems kind of crazy, unless we anticipate, you know, that we're gonna move a little faster. And everybody's working hard. I'm not saying that nobody's not doing their job. I'm just saying, there's gotta be a way to, can I
I
give
think
an
the way
executive
forward,
order
I
on
think
it, Kathy?
the way forward too right now is to, and I think, I don't know if this is underway, John, you and I have talked about it and other staff, but maybe work could start to price the cost of this reduced infrastructure plan. Because before you do anything, you don't even know how much money to raise for this phase 1 infrastructure, because you don't know what it costs.
Yeah, we have some internal stuff. The staff has been looking at this, like a new lift station and also coming through to 4th Street. So the staff is still doing their due diligence on this. I know that.
Yeah.
lift station's very expensive, and you might as well go all the way down with it where you need it placed. So that part, you're gonna have to put in. You won't have to do the road and the curb, but you'll have to do all that. Only makes sense.
All right, thank you
All right.
very much.
Dwight, thank you very much.
Did my picture ever come back?
Are you gonna leave a
It
copy
didn't.
of
That-
this
I
presentation
really
with
wanted
us?
to see that.
Yeah, you're welcome to it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we tried.
Yeah.
Kathy, do we have a copy of his
I'm gonna save them.
presentation?
I'm gonna save it right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dwight.
Yeah, let me just save
Dwight, we're gonna be taking a tour of Independence on March 5th.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Who all's coming down?
Well, we're gonna be down there, Jennifer Purcell's, our governor's, is gonna be.
I know, talking you.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah, I don't know who's all coming on this council, I'm gonna definitely try to make it, so,
Okay.
it's Thursday, so.
Great.
All right.
Do you have? Yeah.
Okay, so, I know we talked about not putting that on, but I'm glad we did, just because I like to be shot straight, and he's definitely a straight shooter. So, annual report from City Auditor, Polly Rogers and Company, PC.
Thanks for having me. So I'm Connor Delaney, Senior Associate at Polly Rogers, in charge of St. Helens audit field work and financial reporting. I think Matt has passed out. Did you get a chance to pass
Yeah, you guys
out
all have a
copy of the-
copy of it. Just so you're aware, it turns this way. I had some printing issues, so it's not like a book, but flipped on the short edge.
Yeah.
So just keep lifting up.
Yeah, just keep lifting.
Keep lifting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our basically our product is the opinion on the financial statements, and that is located on the second page 2 of the report. And I should also point out that this currently is an unsigned draft. We just have a few more documentation procedures to do at the office. I think we'll finish those up this week. All the numbers, everything in here is final. Opinion is final. It's just won't be probably signed till later this week, and we'll get you out that final copy. But anyways, yes, so the opinion on the financial statements, we have provided what's called an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion on the financial statements, basically the highest level opinion that we can provide. Basically, we found no major issues to report on. And just kind of reiterating some of the things we do to obtain that opinion. We come out a couple times a year, review processes, procedures, internal controls, ask staff questions, do analytics, do a lot of different things, review payroll records, accounts payable, and sampling of transactions, things of that nature. And after we put all that together, we can come up with our opinion. And I should also thank Matt for him and his staff for everything that they do to make the process as smooth as possible and answer all of our annoying questions. I'm sure annoying questions at times. So thanks to him and everyone at the office. We also provide a report that's in the back of the report, pages 64 and 65. There are some other specific procedures that we're required to do by the state of Oregon. Kind of reviewing the city's budgets is one of the budget adoption processes. Making sure there's adequate insurance, general liability insurance. We look at some specific transactions in the street fund, the highway fund, making sure that basically the expenses that are paid out of that fund are specific to highways and roads. And also public contracts and purchasing. So that would be, for example, if you guys purchase something that's over $10,000, you're required to get 3 quotes to make sure that you're getting basically the best price, or at least explain why you bought it. And then over $150,000, you'd have to go out for a bid. And we noted no major problems with any of those things. There were we are required to report on specific instances where the actual expenditures were over the original budget. So as you look through the report, you'll note a few cases where the actual expenditures were in excess of what was budgeted. But, so we're required to report on that. It's not uncommon at all. Pretty much every governmental entity has those, so it's just something we're required to report on, so.
Where were the over expenses?
Let's see, so I think they're located on the specific ones are on page 16. Yeah, I know, it's, you have to kind of flip back and forth with this large report. So most of them are pretty minor. I think the biggest one was an addition, we had to post an adjustment for a transfer from the general fund to the, I think it's the facilities major maintenance fund, if that's right, Matt. Basically what happened was the city has an investment account, some corporate bonds that it owns investment in, and when one of the bonds matured, I think initially it was $1 million or so, and it was initially recorded as basically new revenue, which all the interest on it was new revenue, but the city actually already owned the principal of the bonds, so that was just getting paid back. So essentially what happens without transferring money from the general fund to the facilities fund, it would have had a shortfall, basically. So there was an extra transfer that had to occur there. So that was probably the only one of any significant dollar value. But so that was that. Yeah, that's really, as findings-wise, that's the only audit findings we really had to report on in the report. So other than that, if you guys have any specific questions on any of the financial schedules or basically anything in the report, I can try to answer any of your questions.
If you do want to take time to look it over and you do have any questions or anything, I'm happy to forward you Connor's email and you can talk to him directly if you wish to. You can also forward your questions to me, and if I can't answer them, I can forward them to Connor.
Yeah, we're always definitely available and we can answer any questions. And also when we're out here for field work, we're always available as well. So if anyone wants to come visit, we're more than happy to talk.
All right, I don't think you're gonna have any questions from this council. Thank you.
All right, great, thanks.
Okay. Next on the agenda is semi-annual report from Municipal Judge Amy Duncan.
Hi, how are you? Together a brief report on goings-on with the municipal court. The biggest thing to report is the software conversion is done, and a tremendous success. Actually, no, I should take a step back. The biggest news really is Melanie King winning the Employee Recognition Award. I had the honor of nominating her, and I was very pleased that she got it with Sherry. So she was very, very well deserved. So I was happy about that. But then the next order of business is the software conversion. It took a lot of work from Melanie in April's regular duties to get everything ready. The last time I reported that we were all up to speed on the backlog, but then in addition to that, it was a lot of time-intensive preparation, updating forms, and offense codes within the system. I think Melanie had over 700 criminal and traffic offenses that she had to update, get all in line in order to do this conversion.
That's a lot.
It was a lot, the poor thing. Again, she really deserved that Employee Recognition Award. But she did it, and it went well. They are all trained, and it has significantly improved the operations. April just told me as I walked in here that she got out, I think, a huge stack of letters and suspensions for people who hadn't been paying. What they would have to do prior to this Tyler system would individually go into each defendant, check to see if they were paying, and then send a report out to DMV to suspend, and then send the enforcement letter. Now she has the ability to just run a report with the click of a button. She gets a huge list of who hasn't been claimed. And then can then immediately auto-generate letters to the people that go out. So the time savings with this is huge.
And potentially save them from being suspended as well, probably,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Big deal.
Yes, big deal. Because if you get the letter,
Yes.
she said just yesterday, I think she got $1,700 in payments. And this morning, when she came into work, she had another 400. So people are paying, and, you know, a lot of it is that things slip through the cracks.
They do,
and,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
bills come, and so getting those letters out is just really staying on top of everything. That's also the same for the collections. They had to go through every single case that was gonna get sent to collections and input every person's, all of their data individually. Now the new system does it auto-generate and sends it all to collections in a package. And so that will be hopefully done by the end of the day today. So we had been waiting on those because the prior clerk hadn't done it for 6 months because it was very time intensive. And then knowing that we were going to this conversion, we held off so that it didn't take them months of work to do. And so they're doing that. I think it's about 676 files that will be sent by the end of the day today, hopefully, not tomorrow, in basically a mass package. So that'll be a huge clearance rate for us. Same thing with the parking. They would have to go through, we didn't really have an ability to track the parking citations because the old system, full court, required the staff to input names. When you get a parking ticket, the code enforcement doesn't know the name on it, they know the license plate number. And so it wasn't tracked in this full court system. The clerk had to individually create their own Excel spreadsheet and track it that way, and you know, that was hard to manage. So now this new system allows them to put in license plate numbers and track it with that. So all in all, this system is working really well. And even I can figure it out too, so that's good. They've even trained me on the limited things I need to do. Then with their staffing between the two, they've really figured out a good system. Melanie does most of the pre-criminal matters, pre-resolution, and April takes care of the traffic matters. And she's the front person for the phones and taking payments. Melanie does a lot more of the bigger projects with public records, collections, getting fingerprint cards taken care of, complying with all the legal requirements in that respect. And she's the master of the forms and the macros with the Tyler system. So it's really working well having the full-time clerks. I think we've become really efficient and are providing a really good customer service to people, and not letting things go through the cracks. I mean, we're the largest city in the county and the largest municipal court, so having the two staff is really crucial, and it's working really well. We are continuing to have the CCMH assessments within the court. So today the person didn't show up, unfortunately, but we have twice a month a CCMH counselor comes to the court, and when I do the court-ordered drug abuse and mental health assessments, they get them done here. And so they don't have to go through the walk-in clinic. And with that, we're getting more accurate reports back to see how people are doing with their treatment. Again, you know, my goal is to get people back on the straight and narrow and provide the services to them that they need with treatment and mental health issues. So, I believe that hopefully we'll get a new executive director soon, and that will be able to continue the service that we're providing. So. We did lose one court-appointed attorney, Stephen Flynn, who was really great. He went to Metro Public Defender's Office, so we're gonna have to put an advertisement in the Bar Journal for that position. So far, we're managing with the two we have left, Lucy Heil and Joe Root, but ideally, it's good to have 3. So we'll for another attorney for that. One issue is that the state is redoing, I believe they're redoing the contracts for the public defenders for the circuit courts. And so they're not allowing them to have additional contracts with municipal courts or have outside practices. If that makes sense. And so, because of that, a lot of the people who did both circuit court work and municipal court work are not able to do that.
They
So
wanna be
that's,
circuit more than likely, right?
yeah.
Or municipal loses out of that.
Yeah. So that's the issue we're facing.
That's very interesting. I wonder why they did that.
Well, you know, I think the defense attorneys are very, very overworked. There's not enough of them, they don't get paid enough, and they have a lot of cases. You know, when you have a huge, high volume, they just can't provide the services that their clients, the indigent clients, need. And so I think the state, in doing that, is trying to help their ability to provide the defense services that they need. So, you know, I think it comes from a good place. Just the effect on us is not great. Being in the municipal court. And obviously, we don't pay what circuit court does, so. The bailiff position, we've gone through some interviews. It's gonna be a tough position to fill, just the part-time nature of it with no benefits. I was really hoping to get a retired police officer, and Topaz, I'm hoping your son-in-law might help us out. Jim Abels is recently retired, and I've already put my feelers out for him. He's really wonderful. But the police department, thank you, Chief, is doing a great job providing the service for security, and it's been working well. One of my next points was the court dates. We are very close to going down to 1 day a week. And, you know, I wanted to do it slowly so that the impact on the court staff wasn't huge, and more manageable for them. So now that we're through the conversion and they transfer the Thursday morning probation reviews to Monday afternoon at 3. So then we're just here for one solid day instead of 3/4 of a day and then have another day on Thursday. So, that's the goal. And then for the next upcoming year, we're still working to submit the DMV and criminal convictions to the agencies electronically instead of, you know, doing the printouts and mailing them. So there's the ability to do that. We just need to go the next step and actually get it done. Also, move the court days to the 1 day and hire the criminal defense attorney. That's about it. I mean, I'm just really pleased with the direction we're going and what we've accomplished in about a year and a half since I've been here. And it's been a big learning curve, but I think we're really in a good place right now. Melanie, when I called her yesterday about it, she said the dust is finally settling. And so I think that they're seeing the big light, the tunnel is getting to the end, and they're doing great. So, yeah. Any questions for me?
Have we had a couple meetings with all the judges and whatnot, like we talked about?
We did. We had a meeting with Judge Grant and Mark Lang, who's one of the defense attorneys, Jeff Auxier from the DA's office, myself, and Mr. Erskine. We talked a lot about the CCMH and those assessments. And it happened in the fall. Mr. Erskine might be able to remind me when we did that.
That's correct.
Yeah. So yeah, we did that, and I think we'll probably try to do it. It was hard to get everyone's schedule together, like it got set a few times. And so we should probably start doing it again, because it might take us 3 to 6 months to actually get it on the books.
Try and get a couple police officers this time or something to answer questions so that we're all working on the same page.
I think that you have to be careful about the separation and, that,
You do some, yes.
yeah, and so that's why it was important to me to have not just Mr. Erskine and Jeff Auxier there, but also Mark Lang from the defense side. And so I'm happy to have the police department there. I don't know what,
I'm just talking about maybe instances where things might work better if it went this way or that way, or just,
yeah.
they're on the other end of the line, so.
Mm-hmm.
The other question I have is, why are there tickets written out on the main highway that go to Vernonia or Columbia City and not here?
I have asked that question, because I was wondering why, if it's happening within the city of St. Helens, why we aren't getting like the driving under the influence tickets. And the answer I got was because they send, the county and the OSP sends theirs to circuit court, and we only get the St. Helens Police Department ones. And, I said, why? Why can't, if they're happening within the city, why aren't we getting them?
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm trying to remember what the answer was, but my impression was that it wasn't gonna change.
So
And-
literally,
and maybe
people are
Chief can
getting
tell us more about
here
that.
and they have to go to
Does the
Vernonia?
question make
Yeah.
sense?
It does make sense. It makes, it would be more, mistakes, it seems like the court in Vernonia would just route them back here, would be the best solution. Or to have some type of training for all the officers, in this county, to understand is that ticket is, the court you cite, the jurisdiction you write that ticket needs to go to that court. So I think it's a collaborative effort between the law enforcement agencies and the courts. And if there are tickets that go to Vernonia or a different court, and they should have been routed here, that court just routes them here, or something, we have to meet in the middle. I don't know why the other jurisdictions write for the other courts. I can look into it.
Well, I don't know if the issue is that we're getting Vernonia's tickets, but that if
They're
it's.
getting ours,
Yeah.
correct.
For some
Or
reason,
that-
I don't
that
know who's
circuit court's
writing
getting
about here,
ones.
but Denhang Road, I think outside the city goes either to Vernonia or Columbia City, and there's probably even a few inside the city. If they're at the
So are you saying that they're being ticketed, they're stopped in the city,
or just outside the city, possibly. I
but
mean,
then it's going to,
It's going to Vernonia or
Vernonia.
Columbia City.
Yeah.
oh, well, that's a different problem than I thought, because
So I think.
what
that-
I had initially inquired about was if it's happening within the city, why is it going to
Right.
circuit court instead of here?
So what
And it was
he's
the
asking
officers,
is,
so,
are they getting those cities are probably getting a percentage of tickets, but I think this is where I see Keith's head.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm
That-
just getting it from the community, because who wants to drive to Vernonia if you
Absolutely,
have a violation right out here?
yeah,
That's true.
that should not be happening.
I see the car pulled over quite frequently out by Deer Island Road, outside the city
All the
limits.
time.
And that's
Inside the city
possibly
limits too.
Inside.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Outside
Inside the
theirs.
city limits too, also.
Outside theirs and outside ours.
Yeah.
Right.
Who are the officers?
The man in the back.
If we see a violation that occurred past Deer Island Road, it's gonna be outside city limits, even if we stop them in St. Helens, the
Right.
violation occurred outside, so that's why we cite to a different court.
That's why he's
At
stationed.
least St. Helens officers, I'm not sure about other.
That's why he's stationed right at Deer Island Road. Not you. No, good report, good work, you guys. Yeah, you
Thank you.
brought a long ways.
Yeah. Any other questions? I can-
Nope, I think you covered everything.
Okay,
Tell
great.
Melody, good job for us.
Thank you.
Yes.
I will.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll have Sam. Erskine, come on down.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
I have a handout just for my report to pass out, if that's okay. And I just wanted to follow up on a couple things. One was, Councilor Locke, did that answer your question? Because I was ready to take notes to get you an answer, because I didn't know exactly if that addressed it. but-
All I know is every so often somebody will say, why was I sent to Vernonia? And then one guy actually went to Vernonia, and then they looked at the ticket, and Vernonia and Columbia City were both marked on it. And the lady says, oh, you should be in Columbia City right now. And he was in Vernonia, so His day didn't go good, I know that.
Yeah. Well, everybody makes mistakes, so it could, it's
Yeah.
possible that it could be chalked up to that.
No, wasn't.
The second thing I just wanted to note was the police department's response to the providing courtroom security was, I think, the best response I've ever seen from an agency like that in terms of, I think we asked, and then the very next day had a police officer in the courtroom. And it was just, I think, amazing, and so I wanted to, I guess, point that out for the police department's sake, that that response was really wonderful and appreciated by both myself and Judge Lindgren. I started off my report with just some, I guess, statistics, and I think Matt will follow up with, I think, a little bit more comprehensive statistics. These are from my records, so they might vary a little bit from what you might see. But just in terms of total police reports that were sent to the city prosecutor's office, there were 380 that I noted. This includes cases being referred for charging, warrant and arrest reports, supplemental reports, and reports just to provide information. The total number of cases that were referred for charging decisions were 242, and of those, 184 cases were filed in the municipal court. And I tried to provide some annotation as to the reasons for that discrepancy between those two numbers. One is that some cases get declined. Some cases, after I review them, I think they might have a felony charge or something like that, so I refer those over to the circuit court. And then there's some cases where I'm still waiting on some evidence to be received before we make the charging decision. And then I also I took count, and by my count, we had 8 jury trials last year in the municipal court, which I don't know what the count was prior to that, but my impression is that's significantly more than what occurred in the past several years. And I think that's I think I've mentioned this before, but I think that's a sign of the health of the court system, that you're able to provide people with jury trials when they request them. I don't want to get too much into my, I guess, my own personal business stuff, but I did want to give the council a little bit of information about some things, because it kind of pertains to some of the work I'm doing for St. Helens. In January of last year, I assumed the administrative support duties that Melanie Payne had previously been providing for the city prosecutor, and so those have been rolled into the work that I'm doing for the city now. And then later on in the year, I contracted with the city of McMinnville in July to provide prosecution services there. And then with Troutdale, I began prosecuting there in October. My wife, who is a former Multnomah County prosecutor, came to work with me, and she's the primary contact person in McMinnville, and I'm handling Troutdale. But this pertains to the work I'm doing here because it's kind of allowed for, I guess, implementation of what I had kind of, the business plan that I had envisioned as I started to see these opportunities to work with other cities. And that is essentially to provide kind of economies of scale, both with respect to money and with respect to research and labor and things like that. And so I wanted to provide you with a couple of examples. There's kind of some smaller scale ones and larger scale ideas that I've had that are investments I'm going to make, or I'm planning to make in the business, that will benefit St. Helens directly, and obviously these other cities as well. The small scale example I wanted to point out was obtaining subscription services to LexisNexis, which is a legal research tool that's widely used throughout the legal community, and it's something I think that financially will work now that I have these contracts with other cities, and it essentially allows for really quick. It's a really powerful research tool, so I can do research more quickly. I can be more assured that I'm getting the right results to a legal question or researching a legal issue. And so that in turn, if you look at it in concrete terms, if the police department sent me a legal question, for example, and without LexisNexis, it would take me 45 minutes to figure out what the answer is. With LexisNexis, I hope that it will take 15 minutes, and so there will be a quantifiable reduction in time. And it's just a very concrete kind of small improvement I can make to the business side of things. A larger scale project that I'm hoping to start this year, and there's kind of a lot of, I guess, known unknowns and unknown unknowns on this project, but, and I think I've mentioned this before, that a big part of this job for me is protecting victims' rights and making sure that victims are receive the protections that they're entitled to under law. And one project I see to potentially further that goal is to create a web-based portal. I think I showed you at one of my last presentations the way I revamped the paper documents that I send out to victims. I would like that all to be available via the internet. I feel like that would be a step toward modernity for that kind of issue. But obviously there's kind of a lot of logistical pieces to make sure I'm securing people's data in the right way, to make sure that it's something that the city's okay with me doing, and then to make sure that, you know, I essentially am addressing all of the victims' issues that I need to address that I'm currently doing through this paper packet that I mail out to people. And I have a contact person that I know at this organization called the Oregon Crime Victims Law Center. They're specifically an organization that addresses and deals with victims' rights issues in Oregon. So I'm hoping that I can reach out to her and kind of work collaboratively on that project and get something off the ground maybe this year. There's also kind of some other benefits that I wanted to highlight based on the work kind of crossing jurisdictions in terms of McMinnville, Troutdale, and St. Helens. And that is, you know, concrete things like, for example, if St. Helens PD asks me a legal question and I research it and provide them to an answer, my plan is to create a database of that so that, you know, if McMinnville or Troutdale has that same question, I don't have to start from scratch. And then vice versa, if Troutdale has a question that applies to something in St. Helens, hopefully I can use that here as well. There's also kind of like some common issues that I've seen, and St. Helens is, I guess, it seems like largely avoided this, but in McMinnville, there's a significant issue that they're having with code enforcement on illegal camping, so people, transients setting up camps throughout their city, and trying to address that through city code enforcement. I don't know if that's going to come to St. Helens at some point, but hopefully, if it does, the work and the experience that we have dealing with it in McMinnville will hopefully be a benefit to people here. And then there's also things that I think are a point of pride for St. Helens in terms of the municipal court here. And one of the examples that I thought of when I was preparing this was that in McMinnville, we've been working with the city to make sure that everyone that is arrested is fingerprinted, because that fingerprinting allows for the arrest information to be recorded with the state, which is important so that if you run a criminal background check on someone, you see that the arrest occurred. And likewise with the dispositions that happen with court. So if a charge is dismissed or a person is convicted of a crime, that information needs to be relayed to the state so that that information shows up on a background check. And St. Helens is excellent at that. And that really is to the credit of Melanie and April and Judge Lindgren as well. So the lessons that were, I guess, learned there, I'm hoping to apply to other cities. And I hope that there'll be obviously an exchange to benefit St. Helens in there as well. But at this point, I mean, I think that's something the city can be proud of, that those things are being done really well. And then there's just, I guess the last point was that there were significant overhauls to the way court files were managed when Judge Lindgren and I started. A concrete example is that police reports are no longer kept in the court files, and there's various reasons for that. I hope that at some point we can reduce those protocols, because right now they're not written down anywhere, but I hope that we can kind of create guidelines and then share those between cities as well. And St. Helens, I think, is going to be a really good model for other cities. And if there's good things happening in those other cities, my goal will be to bring it back here and implement that as well. That's all I got for you. Any questions for me?
Well, I like that you're moving forward, and all I can say with your, first of all, to say LexisNexis 5 times fast, that's hard. That you definitely make sure you have a very good IT guy to protect you from your web.
Yeah, I don't even know, I mean, I see the complexities that you guys are dealing with land use stuff. I know nothing about web development, so I think there's probably a pretty steep learning curve for me to figure out if that's something I can do, which is why it's a longer term goal, because it's not something I'm gonna be able to do in a month from now.
And make sure you got insurance on that web stuff.
I'm insured.
ID protection
Yeah.
stuff. It's a
Yeah.
whole new thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you all for your time, I appreciate it.
thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Good to see somebody moving forward.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so now we're up to update on recreation program. Shauna is not here, but let's get that.
She is at a meeting, so she's going to be done at 3. I was expecting you guys to take longer to get to this point,
we
so.
got executive session. We're moving- we are moving
So
forward.
she is going to be here around 3:30 if you're okay with pushing.
Well, let's talk about the
moving on.
police station.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask Chief to chime in too as well, and he can fill you in on anything that I'm missing here. What I'm handing you out are some kind of first draft schematics. They are in no way or shape or final of what may be a new police station. So you are seeing 2 sites that you selected a while back. The first site on top is the site that is across from the current recreation center. The second page is the second site is up in the Holton district. So I am here today, and Jacob is running down here because he's gonna interlude a little bit because maybe. So he can answer any of the land use questions or property specifics questions. What I'm here today is to talk with you about picking one site to move forward with Jacob, city planners, the architecture firm McKenzie out of Portland that has done the study to this point, and we would like to move forward with one site so we can finalize what it's gonna look like, how it's gonna look like, how much it's gonna cost, and how do we get it. So I can answer any questions. And Chief, can you maybe fill in? So we took these plans and showed them to staff at the police station and inquired about what they thought, what their preference was from their point of view. And if you want to talk about that briefly?
The officers, 100% selected with justification, rightful justification, the site at Old Portland Road in Castor. The benefits of putting a station there, these are the boots on the ground, the officers, that would give them the opportunity to access and traverse Highway 30. They're concerned, first and foremost, was the trains. There's a new train, noon train apparently, or somewhere around noon, on a consistent basis that will block from Gable all the way almost to Deer Island. And this allows the officers to shoot up OPR to McNulty over to Millard to actually get to the west side of the city. That was their first concern. This is not a popularity contest for them as far as they're getting a new station. They're very grateful and they understand that regardless of the site, but they're looking out for the community's best interest. The second concern was future growth for our city. We're looking here at 2020, but we don't know, none of us really know what 2050 is going to look like in this town, aside from Councilor Locke still being on the city council. Joke. So they were looking for future growth. If the site was selected at 18th and Columbia, we're basically landlocked as far as any future growth. We have a new apartment complex opening this year. There's the potential for, we have a second one opening, then the potential for residential growth. we see what's happening in the Portland area. We're getting a lot of residents from Portland at a community. One of the things that in the short time I've been here, a year and a half, that I've noticed is there's a lot of land out here and a lot of potential development, which will increase the city infrastructure. So in 20, 30, 40 years, will this police department have to expand? And if so, this is the best location for it, for expansion, because you won't have to go up. And that's the only option by selecting the location at Columbia and 18th Street. Now, this is strictly from the employees of the police department coming up with these ideas, the ones that will actually occupy this station and work out of this station and their concern. Again, so that was basically their concern, just to traversing the city in the best way possible to continue to service the community. But, our whole goal, I stand by this, is this isn't an Iraq fire base where we deploy out of the station to have officers in the field, but the reality is that they do spend some time at the station, whether processing evidence, writing reports, or even walk-in traffic. The downfall, and I can't just say it's all, sunshine and roses, the downfall of selecting the site is that it's not centrally located. It's away from the shopping district. But our station where we have it now, people rarely walk in. They usually commute via vehicle to file a report or talk to an officer. On occasion, we will have one or two walk in that live across, or somewhere close, but the majority of our traffic pulls up in a vehicle, so that wouldn't affect us or hinder us in any way. Another consideration for this site was that in the location where 18th Street and Columbia Boulevard, the one-way streets are a hindrance for the officers. It's a little challenging at times, even with the location now, to get across traffic. Granted, they do have the ability to use, emergency lights and siren as permitted through the revised statute of Oregon, but that's something in your everyday travels that the officers don't use that all the time. So putting this location with one-way streets, it's a challenge. It's not something we can't overcome, for certain, but so the overall, it was 100% of the officers voted for OPR and Castro Road as that location. So hopefully that's okay, Matt, to say that.
Yeah, that's fine. I do want to let Jacob speak, because I'm sure he has some notes for you guys to consider and think about as we consider these two sites. One thing I do want to remind the council is that the plans as of right now is a two-story building. That doesn't, the building itself does not change depending on what property you pick from. It also includes moving municipal court over to the new police station. So municipal court would leave City Hall in this downtown area and move into that new police station. That would relieve a lot of stress that we have here as far as space and staffing and parking and everything for City Hall. But I do want to hand it off to Jacob because I know these aren't final and there's positives and negatives to each site, and he can speak a little bit more directly to you about the land use issues on each of those. Can I put you on the spot, Jacob?
No, that's okay. So starting off with the one in the Holton area, it's a block. So your areas, we know where the sewer is at, your boundaries, so there's the potential of less surprises. The other site is more dynamic, because you have the wetlands, you have the floodplain, you have the roundabout, so there's more room, but there are more potential surprises, and I wouldn't say either is good or bad, but there's probably going to be more massaging with the one along Old Portland Road.
I noticed that building is right on the corner of a 500-year floodplain. Did you do that by design?
No, the consultants did. And there's an elevation required above that. But one of the things that this doesn't show is, and we've talked about this before, is in the floodplain ordinance for critical facilities like a police station, you're supposed to elevate the facility. You're also supposed to have an access point that is also high and dry. And so what we could see here is, it doesn't mean you can't have access from Castor, but you would have to have a back door in that's not in the floodplain, which would probably travel easterly and go up one of the numbered streets to
16th.
Old Portland Road.
Yeah, it'd be 16th. The 17th would be right by Johnny's Tavern, the gravel. And then the 16th is what, the apartment complex, the way they're designed is 16th, and it has asphalt actually back to that little gate right there.
And I can't remember,
They actually drew it in there, the little gate, towards the very back.
yeah, well, yeah, we had a lot of conversations with those folks. But the access, because the floodplain kind of branches out a little bit, and so based on what we know about where that's at, it's gonna, and I don't have the map in front of me, but it may have to go over a couple blocks and then shoot up. So that's just an expense that we don't know. Some of that is shooting elevations based on the floodplain elevation, so we know.
More accurate.
Yeah. Of course, the other advantage is if we need to elevate it, we're probably gonna have a big supply of fill. And since it's on the same site, and I just started, I helped John with some notes, and given the Department of Minerals and such, DOGAMI, I don't remember exactly what the acronym says, but based on those notes from a few years ago, it's not considered mining for their purposes, or for their purposes of DOGAMI regulation, you know, if you're keeping it in on site. And so there's that advantage of having that fill on site. So I wouldn't say there's pros or cons, but just, you know, one, it's obvious, the other one's more dynamic and probably gonna have more surprises.
Jacob, if I move that building right on Old Portland Road, am I outside the floodplain by inches? Or is that still in the floodplain?
The closer you get to Old Portland Road, the closer you get to the floodplain. So on that map, if you see, there's a couple lines, there's the 500 year, and then there's the 100 year.
So that's coming from McNulty Creek.
That's correct, yeah. So the further south or west you go, you're going into that flood zone.
So it's opposite to what you would think driving down the road?
That's hard for me to say because I look at the city so often from overhead with maps and stuff. My perspective is it's a little different, so.
It's actually pretty high from the river itself, but not from McNulty Creek.
So the purpose of this, though, is to pick up plan, a site for study, right?
Correct, and I was gonna let John speak a little bit as well, because I know he has some comments and maybe some attributes that may lend to help your decision, and give him an opportunity to speak. But the purpose of today's meeting is for the council to decide on one site to move forward with. So Mackenzie can go back, work with Jacob more on whatever site, and really fine tune the plan, the engineering, what it's gonna cost, what it's gonna look like, all of those details that get us to the next step in the process. So can I hand it over to you, John?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to push on Councilor Topaz's comment there a little bit, and I think what you were inferring perhaps was, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the building orientation being more urban building pushed up closer to the curb, not looking at a big sea of parking from the road might be more desirable.
Yeah. The other thing that this piece of ground is gonna be changed because we're gonna have the connector go through here. What does that mean to the elevations?
And to that, I'd comment that an engineered fill would probably take care of any of that.
Okay, so that would answer.
Between 100 and 500 year flood is probably.
So that would answer the question. I could put dirt in there and I solve the problem.
Right. Engineered fill. Yep. What else, John?
Appropriate fill. It sounds like there's a pretty good consensus with the people that are going to be using the facility, which in my career I've always found that to be very valuable input. The Columbia Boulevard piece is having a nice shiny building in person would be fantastic, pushed up against the curb. But I understand the logistics with the one-way street patterns and things that they pointed out, and the limited area, basically bounded by the streets and just utilities, expense of relocating it to buildings
And it's a
oriented.
very commercial location too.
And it's
Anything else?
How much thought was put into crossing Route 30? I know the police definitely know about it. that thing is sticking in our nose every time, the Gable Road, crossing Route 30, future plans for getting across Route 30 or onto Route 30.
So the Highway 30 crossing the railroad tracks and everything was one of the large components of factors when we rated each site internally through McKenzie as well as internally through our staff as well. So that was a determining factor in choosing these two sites versus the other sites that were considered.
Okay. Now, in their consideration, was it possible, or did they throw out, we're gonna put a bridge over the railroad, it's easy to put it there or there? Absolutely out of the typical box, this is basically what we have now, this is the best way to cross. Is there thoughts of other ways to cross the railroad, and if so, where would the police station go with the other way?
To be honest and blunt, I think the process and thought process was that it's more likely that we're gonna get a new police station in the next 5 years as opposed to building a bridge or an underground tunnel in the next 50 years.
Yeah, okay, so it was considered, that's the question.
So any other,
Of course. I've got something, I'm waving my hand over here. I'm kind of disappointed that there wasn't an economic kind of feasibility study done between the two. I understand that one is private and the other one is city-owned. But the one that's city-owned has potential for other kinds of developments in that area. Was that all thought about or talked about in terms of economics of what it's going to, I know we were going to talk about what it's going to cost, but a feasibility kind of study of what could happen here across from Johnny's in terms of a commercial residential area, and or what's the anticipation of that as an economic generator of some sort, opposed to Columbia Boulevard. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for costs.
Correct. So an official economic study on these two specific sites was not done. It was not asked by myself or staff of McKenzie to do an economic study on those sites at this point. We did talk about it when we met with McKenzie a few times about what these sites could be used if they weren't a police station. There was definitely more talk on the Holden district being more commercial and, like Councilor Locke had mentioned, commercial availability for space. There is the industrial park that is planned on the recreation center site. As far as site readiness and being able to have something commercial and property tax acceptable, it's more plausible that would develop faster than this, or the Holden district site would be more feasible than there. So
that's kind of the nature of what I was thinking along the line of economics. I really appreciate the staff weighing in on practicality of the sites. So
and
just on the back of my mind was like, okay, what's the economic benefit of going to Old Portland Road rather?
Correct. And so also to your point, as much as I would love to come out of this with one building, if the council's decision is to, we actually really want to dig in on both, and we want to see what the cost is and what the engineering plans and what it looks like on sites 1 and 2. That will cost a little bit more with McKenzie, but it is plausible and doable.
There is a little bit in our inventorying that we've done over the years. So recently, we've looked at our residential lands. We know we have a lot. Of course, this isn't residential. But we have looked at our employment lands. And though our employment land studies are kind of old, they have said that we don't have a whole lot of commercial lands, and we have extra industrial lands. So if you're looking at it from that basic standpoint,
I'm looking at it from a point of housing. What are we losing if we take that industrial site, rezone it into commercial residential? I'm looking at what we could be losing with this chunk compared to the other. That's all. But just kind of in my mind. thinking 20, 30, 40 years from now, not like right now.
Going 20 years from now, and let's assume we have 5 major companies on our industrial site, and we'll put 100 people per industry in there. What is the need for the police on an industrial site versus a residential site as far as officer time and involvement?
I think we're getting out in the weeds on this.
No, the point is-
What we have before us, and I have to keep this meeting going because we have an executive session, and you guys know that we have a bunch of stuff that is very important that we need to get into, serious business. The question at hand is, do you want both sites? Do you want one site? We have officer testimony. I have not weighed in on this. I've been trying to stay neutral. But I need to keep this meeting going forward. And so the question is, one or the other or both, as far as having, what's the name, Matt? McKenzie drawing up a plan.
Both? Because if that's the question, if you want the answer, I'll weigh in first. I think both, because I think more of an economic study on both of them, but just kind of voting, okay, we'll go with this, we don't know how much it costs compared to the other one. That's simple.
Same building,
not
though.
only just.
Same building though, right?
Yeah, it's the same schematic as far
Right.
as what the idea of the building
I
is.
think with that schematic of that building is a huge part of the cost. They both have infrastructure to them. I do want to weigh in a little bit, I guess. They both have infrastructure, because this does have sewer coming right along here.
They
And
both have
power is overhead.
variables that are very distinct to these properties.
And no existing building or chewing up of asphalt, right? No, versus one does, one doesn't. So the added fill could also be neutral to the demolition of the other building. I think you're kind of neutral. So what site do you really think would be
Well,
the best?
one, we
home?
have to pay a private person, right? We have to pay for the property.
We have to pay for the property, we have to pay for the demolition of the property, chewing up of the asphalt.
Well, that's privately owned at this point.
And potentially any cleanup that's in there.
What's possible is if you do select both or even one, we could still ask McKenzie to do a soft assumption on the second one as kind of a backup, just so you have, as a council, a better vision and idea of what, we know exactly what this one's gonna cost, but if you didn't wanna go with this one, here's the variable that we didn't do as in deep discussion.
I hear what you're saying, but we need to stay focused, and we have the officers weighed in that they would like this site. I would like to take the recommendation of staff and quit trying to, I would like to listen to the people who are gonna be using it and give them their wishes. They haven't had one for 50 years, and we're probably gonna get another 50 years out of this, and this is a bigger chunk of property which allows expansion, way bigger. I look at the two, flip the page and look at it. Look at the two. We got 1.04 acres. I'm sorry, Doug, but I need to weigh in too.
Well, go ahead.
You're not just the only voice.
No,
And I'm weighing in as mayor.
I
So
thought you
we
wanted to
have
go
1.04 acres. I do want to go fast. We have executive session. And we have 2.3 acres, which we can expand because it is our property. It expands into 204 if we need it. That's my.
One thing to keep in mind too, and this may go back to what Councilor Topaz was, his question beforehand, is on the industrial side, we did have some initial discussions with the fire district. They are in need of a new facility and a new administration office. And if we selected this site, it is an idea, potential, that you could potentially sell a little bit of more land to the fire district to build a public safety center. They may not be an attached building or something like that, but it would be a new fire station, new admin office for them in the same area of the industrial park, which I think would be beneficial for any industrial customers that may come in. But that is a far idea down the road that may never come to fruition.
Well, playing that same game, we could use a city hall that doesn't look like it's gonna fall in, and then you would have a municipal complex in this site, next to Old Portland Road, which you couldn't on the other site. Again, as you say, way down the road, but at least we have ground here for,
You have room for expansion here.
yes, you don't have the other place.
So I know Councilor Martin has weighed in, it sounds like
Yeah,
Mayor has weighed in.
I'm waiting to hear from other
Councilor Carlson, Locke, and Topaz, do you have a preference?
I mean, I like the 18th Street, I like the Holton District site, in theory. It's like, you know, for 20 years, I've crossed those tracks. Every day I've crossed those tracks, and thinking about people's lives at risk and safety at risk. If they're saying this is the most efficient place for them to be able to do their job, that weighs in with a pretty heavy foot for me. So if that's the most efficient place that they can do the job we've hired them to do, that gets my vote.
Councilor Locke?
I want to know what changed. Because when we first started talking about this property, we couldn't build the police station there. What changed?
We never said never.
They drove the floodplain. We didn't have a floodplain
We said
when
that
we talked
there
about
was
it.
the floodplain, and that was one of the things that had to be contended with.
We didn't have a line for that when we talked about it.
So there's just another layer of stuff you have to deal with, and that's the
Right.
floodplain regulations.
Right.
It's a little more bureaucracy, which we're all used to.
Well, my vote is for Old Portland Road. Because of, I would like to see a city complex down there also.
That, there's room and expansion for that if city council ever decided to do that, so. Sounds like I have.
I'm assuming the line down, is that the street that's supposed to be there, Jacob?
Yeah, that's a right of way.
And that's where the sewer runs right down the middle of that.
That's correct.
I believe, yeah.
Yep. And that right of way can be used for access, so there's even, the boundary drawn on that one, that can be massaged.
Yeah, and I think we should make it bigger just because, for expansion, because you don't want to put something next to it where you can't expand. So, yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and if Shauna doesn't make it, we'll put her on the next agenda, because I'm gonna get through, well, she probably might make it through. Let's talk about Citizens Day plans. Did you guys reach out to the Kiwanis at all? You guys have a meeting between now and last meeting?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Or you haven't made it? You just haven't had a meeting?
We haven't had a meeting.
Okay.
I talked to Lisa and Kathy about that we need to develop a job list for what we do, because the Kiwanis already has one for the parade. So then you mix those two job lists, and I think we need to reach out to possibly the other groups in town too, because any volunteer is a good volunteer, you know. I don't know, obviously the Kiwanis are busy that day.
Yeah.
There are some people that can't do the morning, so that maybe they could do the afternoon and vice versa, so.
You gonna do the Thursday meeting?
Tomorrow?
Yes.
I could.
Why don't you do that, and I'll try to get to the morning one,
Daybreakers?
and between us, we can
So,
possibly come up with it. You do have morning people helping out on the parade.
A few, not a lot, but we haven't really reached out to them much, but it's a great idea, absolutely.
okay, so I think that's really all I really wanted to discuss was that right there. So maybe we could make a, kind of hypothetically, I know Lisa had a list from last year of what she thought volunteers would be needed. So we can have that for our next meeting. And I will stop in and talk to her and see if there's anything that we think we need to add to it. So we're prepared for next meeting. okay?
I'll reach out, see who's doing our webpage, to see if all that can be added to the Kiwanis list that's already on.
And likewise, we
the
can put it
internet.
on
Right.
our page, their page, yep. If it works out.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Right.
rain on their parade.
I hope you didn't jinx it.
Just gonna steal it away, that's all.
All right, so, let's go to department reports. Chief Greenwood.
Nothing today, Mr. Mayor.
Sue.
Just, we have the water line project that we opened bids on last week. It's on the agenda tonight to approve. We got some good bids, and hopefully we can get moving on that project really quickly. And also, a question for the council in general regarding the First Street and St. Helens Street intersection. We're looking at considering putting the overhead utilities underground, which will add cost to the project, but is that something that you would be willing to pursue to help beautify that
Definitely.
intersection? Okay.
I think so. I think.
I would recommend it, as this would be the time to do it if we're gonna do it.
Yeah, definitely need to throw the conduit in before you put the concrete.
Is it question time?
Yeah, sure.
I wondered if you are updated regarding the street in front of the high school.
Street in front of the high school, yeah.
ETA on Gable, and then I had just in passing had conversations with someone about an improved crosswalk for the kids.
Yes.
And I just wondered what the ETA of getting people that live up there are like, when does the road open that I don't have to go around a giant block to go to Safeway, so.
Yeah, so just recently, if you've driven up there, they're moving the one-way to the other lane. It's gonna still be going in the same direction, but they're just moving it to the other lane so they can move all the equipment to the other side of the road and finish doing the sidewalks there. Now that we're in this kind of spring weather where things change on a daily, hourly basis, we have to be careful of temperatures and rain during the day to be able to finish the concrete work. But they're doing all the excavation and the prep for the sidewalks on the north side of the road. It's gonna take a little, it'll go generally faster because all the underground utility stuff is already done. That's what's taken so long, is the underground, all the storm system, messing with getting through water lines, not just ours, but they had McNulty to deal with down at the intersection. All of that stuff is taken care of. So the other side of the road, as far as just doing the sidewalk itself, won't take as long. However, because there's so many more driveways on that side, there's a lot more logistics to deal with. Altogether, once they get the sidewalks all in, then they'll be paving, putting in trees, and then doing the crosswalk. And it's a flashing beacon crosswalk, just straightening it out instead of having it go diagonally across the road. Those will all come at the very, very end of the project.
Is there an ETA on the end?
ETA is probably still, where are we, in February, March, April, 2.5 months away.
So maybe before school lets out.
Potentially before school, yeah. I don't know when school actually
I always guess
dismisses.
long and be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping as well, is, but they're taking into account that they're gonna have some weather delays and things like that along the way.
I just wanted to get that update out there, because I knew that because it's turning into a city road, that you would have the update.
It will eventually be, well, that's their intent, is that they'll offer it to the city
And
once
then
all the improvements are
The
done.
connector from Gable to Sykes on Columbia is next year?
That'll be a sidewalk only on the one side, so that there'll be interconnectivity between Gable and Sykes. And then also another flashing beacon at the existing crosswalk going over to McBride, and a little bit of improvement at the actual intersection of Sykes and Columbia there, as far as the pedestrian refuge crossing where the sidewalk is located. And that we expect to go out to bid in the fall of this year and constructed in the spring of next year.
Which side of the road will the sidewalk be on?
Southerly, easterly side.
The highway side?
Yeah, yes, towards the closest to the.
And then there's a right-of-way that connects Gable to Sykes that is for pedestrians. Is that improved, or is that
Well,
gravel, or
there's,
is that chips, or what is that surface?
there is an easement that goes through, but
That kids are kind of using as a trail.
that they have been using, yes, as a trail for a long time. That's not part of any of our projects.
Okay, all right, I just, when people talk about back-to-school routes, in the summer, when we get into nice weather, it's less of an issue, but, come back-to-school time, getting all those kids safe is important.
Yes.
Would there be any issues in the future if we had some leftover asphalt to pave a 6-foot path or part
Well, it would have to be prepped first,
Yeah.
because just putting asphalt down on an unprepped, it's just gonna fall apart. And that would be a difficult place to get into, because you have to have specific equipment just because
A
it
shovel.
starts, well.
Shovel in your hand. Oh my gosh, forget, use a shovel. Those are used for leaning.
Well, we're not gonna have,
Like what we've done out here with the compacted rock.
yeah, I mean,
Something like that.
something like that could,
I mean, just
could potentially.
far out. I mean, sidewalks obviously get those roads done and open and, but thank you so much for that.
Absolutely, anytime.
Yes. Anything else, Sue?
No, that was all I had, yeah, unless you have any other questions.
Back next time you go to the public.
Oh, come on.
We're just a team.
Margaret.
Just a team.
What does that mean?
This Saturday is Makerfest. Gretchen has got a whole array of things lined up. We have good participation from the high school, as you can see from the little handout I gave, with the robotics club and the rapid manufacturing class being part of this effort. Last time we did this, we had about 100 people show up, so that's this Saturday, 9:30 to 11:30. Feel free to drop in and see what we're all about.
All right. Margaret, Matt?
I don't have anything, would it? Can I bring Shauna up and
Yeah, that
see
could-
my time
yeah,
during
yeah,
department
let's do
reports to?
Well, Shauna's coming up. The robotics group is having a kind of a show and tell at the high school this Saturday, also showing off their equipment.
It's pretty fun. We'll let them
Nice.
run that.
And the blue smoke that comes up when things go
And
off.
they throw the things with their.
But anyway, so the robotics club is doing a couple of things today. Well, this week.
Hi, thank you for waiting for me. I was at the Columbia County Childhood Trauma Informed Network meeting, so we were going over their goals and what that looks like. So I'm just happy to be here today too. So I'm Shauna Duggan. I'm the Recreation Manager for the City of St. Helens, and Matt and I wanted to meet today to kind of go over what goals that you guys had for us in the upcoming year, to give you a report back of what we're working on right now and the new programs that are being developed. I think I'll let Matt start first, and then I can chime in where needed. Okay.
So you have a handout that I have purposely printed on large paper, so it's not so small.
Appreciate that.
I try, as long as I remember sometimes. So this is our plan and outline for the next 2 years. As you know, the City Council approved a recreation fee on utility bills that started in January. It goes for 2 years until it sunsets, and we have another discussion to see where the program is, where the funding is, what kind of needs and that you see as a council in the community and what we could do. So I wanted to put as much on paper as I could to let you guys know what Shauna and I are planning to work on over the next 2 years of this rec fee for the program to grow financially, as well as to hopefully become stable for the future so it can continue on past the sunsetting date. So up at the top, you'll see some organizational structure, things that we'll be working on throughout the next 2 years. Some small improvements to the recreation center that we have going on, a couple things that we still need to fix and correct. One thing about the recreation center that we wanted to talk with you today about was the opportunity that I think we lost by naming it a recreation center. We started out with, well, just the name of it. As opposed to a community center. When we began this program, we anticipated a lot of activities and everything going on in that building. And there are activities that go on in that building, but we have really grown our partnership with the school district. And the main focus of that building was the summer program, the after-school program that could potentially be there. Whereas now we have transitioned to the school district allowing full use of a portable building that we have control over, so we can lock things up at night, keep things safe. We also have access to the gym, the playground. The school lunch program is at Lewis and Clark, where we have the portable. And so a lot of the activities for our after-school program, which is our biggest program for the recreation program, is at Lewis and Clark and not at the recreation center site. So what we would like to talk to you about is the opportunity to rename that and classify it as a community center. And we, if you remember at the last meeting, you approved rental rates for that center to be used, and we want to position ourselves as a program in a city to have a facility like a community center that can be used and rented out by its citizens. And so we can increase the use of that building as much as to its potential as possible. So that involves some discussions.
Rec and community center.
But I mean, to Matt's point is that the ones that have full-blown rec programs in Portland, full-blown like aquatic centers are still called community centers.
Correct.
I mean, it's full-on library, senior center, and pool is attached, and they're still calling it a community center.
And I think
Because it's all
there's some assumptions and premonitions that go in when you say recreation center versus when you say community center. It means something different to members of the community as far as just what is available, what's in that building, what's being done. And so I think it would be better utilized and accepted into the community and used more as a community center versus calling it a recreation center.
I've got a question. What does that mean to our citizens when we told them budget-wise that, their $2 fee would be going to a rec program, and now we change the rec program, and it disappears, and they're all thinking, ooh, what's this? What's going on? What's happening? So I think the perception is, if we pull the wool over their eyes, is it still going, are those funds still going to sunset? How is this all going to be talked about in our community and accepted by our community? And I'm sure it will be. It's just a kind of an uneasy thing to kind of like deal with in terms of perception.
It is, and I think with a firm kind of a grassroots plan of renaming that center, not still keeping the rec program going as the recreation program, but the staff and some of the activities may be at the community center. And it's really just renaming the center for its use. And I think that actually helps the discussion for the $2 fee, because I think there's more discussion and more openness of, you've got this $2 and it's gonna help the rec program and the community center as a whole.
I think the mayor had a point when he kind of joked about it, when he says community and rec. I kind of like that, because then it kind of eases on into the best of both worlds, I think.
Yeah, I also like that, and to what Matt's saying is the rec program will still be going full on like it is now. In the beginning, when we did our partnership with the school districts, we didn't have the recreation building, and so we were gonna be in the schools more. And what we have found is, for the after-school programs, it is better that we're in the school, because then we don't have to transport the kids, we don't have to worry about that transition time. And now with the new middle school, I actually have a little corner office there that I get to be in on Tuesdays and Thursdays to do the after-school program. And that's some of the things that we were gonna talk about too, some of the programming that we're doing. But I think a recreation community center, but adding that community to it, I think would be a good use of the building, and that way, nonprofits can have their meetings there, or if people want to rent it for things, and then it's more of a community wraparound instead of it just being labeled as a rec center, maybe. Did you have?
In reality, it was never just a rec program, was it? It was always a community program.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we're playing games with words.
Correct.
My comment would be that the rec program is bigger than the rec center, and that the community center.
Absolutely.
And being, almost naming it rec center, as Matt was kind of alluding to, feel like it's just there. And it's not as big
and
as
I think
throughout
that's.
the community, and a community center seems, as a REIT brand, seems very appropriate. I get the sensitivity around the building, but the program and the center, I think, are.
And we'd like to utilize it more for rentals, because the honest thing is I'm not in there a ton doing programming in the recreation center right now. We do have some things, but the programs that we have right now are drawing me more to the school districts and more community-based
Well, we
programs.
have a staff there most of the time at our rec center, right?
That's the next question on
We
our
need,
list.
we need that there. If we're gonna be a community
So-
rec center, they need to, they're not gonna go to the school, big school intimidating. They need a central location to be able to.
That goes into the next question. We have this rec center, we have this community and rec center, whatever we end up calling it in the end, is what is your expectation as a council for open hours, for someone to come in and do that? And we're happy to oblige and have somebody there 8 to 5 if that's what you want, but there's a cost to that.
10 to 6.
And so having that person there from 10 to 6, Shauna cannot guarantee that she's gonna be there very much at all because she's out doing partnership meetings at the school district, working with the after-school program, which is huge on its own. So we would need to hire somebody to be there, which is an additional cost for the program that was not originally anticipated. Because when we went into this, we thought, oh, that's gonna be the rec center, that's where we're gonna house, and a lot of variables have changed since then. So,
How many employees do you currently have?
We currently have 8 on,
8 or 9.
So you can't have
But
somebody
they're-
there working the counter?
We can, but we have to pay them.
Yeah.
And that's the crux right now, is that as far as our budget, as far as what's allotted in those $2 that we received, in addition to the after-school program fees, and the programs that were going on with basketball and after school, we don't have capacity to be able to afford someone to be there 10 to 6, Monday through Friday, or every day, if that is your wish. Now, we can work up to that. We can work up to that incrementally through the budget process and through growth of the program, hopefully. But we wanted to make sure that we have your expectations in mind so that we're not going off the side of the road on something that you don't feel is the best use
Well,
of
if the
that facility
program
or
is gonna
funds.
be successful, it's gonna grow. If it grows, you're gonna need more people. End of story. You're gonna have to pay for it, but the program isn't what it started out to be, it's bigger. It's just an annoyance, but it's not a spectacular surprise.
Council Carlson.
A lot of your employees are students, and so that makes it difficult to have somebody be there all day when they're a student.
well, I think kind of, so if we have a 10 to 6 position, then it opens up more opportunities for people to apply. Right now, it's a 20-hour less position, and we're pretty flexible because usually when people are working 20 hours, they're a student or they have a secondary job. So if, that might bring in some other applicants,
The
but.
second part of that is not just that they're students.
Yeah.
When kids are in school and people are at their job, there's less need for somebody to be there that many hours. And so maybe there's some flex option, as a 1 to 5 or something on weekdays. So then if it's consistent every single day,
Yeah.
that
I agree
every
with you.
afternoon after school, you can go by there and talk to somebody. Because you think about the kids that get out of school at noon, the kids that get out of school at 2, those moms that do school homeroom, whatever they call room mother, whatever job. That way, every afternoon, they could go by there and sign kids up or find out what's going on. So that's what I mean, during the school year, I think that after school hours would be perfect.
I agree.
I just don't think 8 to 1, I just don't think that's a good use of your limited resources right now. I think you have to grow to that place.
You said 1 to 4, but I would like to see it after, because the biggest problem with people working out of town, and that's what we face here, and
Right.
that's why our shops don't do very
Right.
well, is because usually they're open from 8 to 5, and they get home from work at 6, and they have,
Yeah,
the shop's already
whether
closed.
it's 1 to 5 or 2 to 6 or whatever,
So,
that after school time.
maybe like a 2 to 6 or 2 to 7, 5-hour maximum per day, per person, kind of just look at that,
A little after-school window of some kind, so moms and.
Shauna, what you can do is try to see when people are coming in, when's the peak time? that
So the
people
peak
come
time
in?
for us right now, because I am there generally daily, is usually after 1 o'clock. So between 1 and 3 is usually our busiest time that we have with people just coming in to ask questions and calling and stuff.
So if we went 1 to 6, so somebody could be there after work if they needed to be.
It's on the 3 days.
They
that-
needed to
at
apply
least on the 2
for
days that you're at the middle school.
soccer or whatever. Yeah, I like where you're going with that.
Yeah,
shorten
just
the
to
hours
kind of
up even.
have a flex space,
Yeah.
because the Chamber of Commerce had similar issues. They just don't have the bodies and don't have the budget. But as long as you're consistent, that you have a regular hours of opening, that people can get in there, get a flyer, ask a question, fill out a form. I think that's where we need to be as accessible, is because people can't chase you around in your vehicle. The other thing is,
They won't find me.
I've never called there, but I don't know what the phone service is there. It's like, is there a press one to reserve this? Is it visit our website? Is there that kind of interface if people call the rec center?
So yeah, there is a message on there that they can leave a message, and I call everyone back every day when I go in and check messages, or my email pops up and stuff. It seems to be pretty easy to get a hold of us through.
Okay, I just thought as long as people, there's information posted on the door, if there's regular after-school hours.
Yeah.
For people to bring their kids in and sign them up or whatever, ask questions.
So-
We need to be self-sustaining, so figure it out.
Just as a follow-up, because I might have missed a conversation, we had talked about renting the building, and we've talked about sponsorship on your materials. Are we moving forward with those things?
So that's part of this kind of 2-year plan, is to start looking at those partnerships as well as what they're bringing to us as a recreation program, as well as what the benefit to the community is. And part of that cost is the printing cost and the administrative cost for doing those guides, and even Shauna's time or my time for helping out. So it is on the steps of things that we're looking at over the next 2 years. My hope is that by the time we get close to that 2-year mark, that we can come back here and say, yeah, we're good to go, we've got the funding, we're doing awesome, and that's the goal and that's the
Also,
intention of our plan.
Just thinking if you had somebody there in the afternoon, it would free you up to do more connecting. You know, because that's what for me, I view Shauna's job as kind of the pilot of this program, and that she can be making the connection with this daycare center, with this school district, with this instructor, with this pediatrician, or with this health program for kids. But if she's tied to that building all the time, how can she do that? So I just look at it long-term, that's kind of her role, is to be kind of the leader.
Do we
Not
pay,
that you aren't already.
we pay the schools for use of their space?
We do not, that's part of our partnership, is
Okay,
that
good.
we get free use of their space, they get free use of our space.
It's a really good partnership, it really has.
We do, it's really blossomed over
Yep.
even just this last year, so.
Make that a point, as compare, hey, other people have jumped in, and I know it's a school system, but other people have jumped in.
Right, and that's actually, the partnerships are one of our main campaigns
Yep,
that you'll
I
see on the
see
bottom
that.
there.
I see that on
That
the
we're really
bottom.
gonna focus on, each month, we're gonna really focus on a certain area, and it'll repeat. So it'll be a constant message that's going out to the community. So, with that being said, I'll hand it off to Shauna for a few minutes. She just wanted to give you a quick update on the program and what she's been working on, where we're at.
So we have our after-school program, our elementary-based one from kindergarten to 5th grade. That one's over housed at Lewis and Clark. We have a whole portable there, and all the buses bus there. So we have about 45 kids enrolled in the program, but see about 30 daily. And that's a paid care program, so it's $235 a month or $20 a day. That one's pretty self-sustaining, and the employees over there mostly work just that program because it is a 5-day-a-week when school's in session. We just partnered with the middle school and launched a middle school after-school program that started the beginning of February. And how we were able to do that is they had a grant that they weren't able to facilitate with admin and all that, so I was able to come in and do that part. And so it's costing us nothing. We have 2 of our staff there that's helping lead different clubs. So it's Tuesdays and Thursdays from after school until 4:30. And then the middle school has provided a community bus home for the kids. So it's not a barrier for them to have transportation home. A few of the clubs that we have going on there is we have a homework club, a media club. Gretchen, the youth librarian, is doing an anime club. We have board games going on, yoga, and I think that's it for the clubs. So we have about 85 kids signed up, and so after school they all come to me, get their lanyards and stuff, then they disperse to their clubs, and then I make sure they're where they need to be, and then put them on the bus or they go home. And let's see here, we have the OHSU partnership. So that one, they got a grant for doing different sort of hatching of eggs and farm-to-table stuff. So we actually are hatching rainbow trout right now in a fish tank over at Lewis and Clark. So we got them from the egg stage, and now they're hatching. So the kids are getting to learn how the temperature needs to be, and just different things about fish. So that's been a really cool partnership, and we're going to be also helping them with a garden over there as well. You guys already know about the Scappoose Bay Marina partnership that we're looking into, and so that's really exciting because they're able to facilitate the outdoor sports, which we don't have experience in. So it's nice to have somebody that has that experience, but be able to partner with them.
Look forward to having them at Citizens Day.
Yeah, you don't want me to teach people how to kayak or anything like that. And then we have our partnerships with CCMH and Griffin's Place, which that's a partnership for inclusive services. So we're able to bring in different programming for people 14 and up with developmental or intellectual disabilities, and it's open to everyone, but they're doing game nights and art classes and different like resume building, and so they're bringing a different sort of service than I have experience doing, so that's been a really great partnership. Let's see, we are mid-basketball right now, so we had over 370 kids sign up for a basketball league. So what that looks like is at ages 3 years old all the way up to 6th grade. Every day during the week we have practicing going on, and then at the schools, we have 3 schools that they're playing their games, and that's been really successful. We've had a lot of people come up to us and really like how the program is going. We have a rec assistant at each practice or game, so they're able to ask questions. We're able to advertise other things. We're getting ready to launch youth soccer, the younger kids of youth soccer, and some adult league type stuff for the summertime, and signups will be in spring. So the focus that I've been really focusing on is the after-school programs, because those are a huge need out here. We all know how the youth didn't have a lot to do after school, and so we're really trying to fill those gaps. The new middle school has a really cool turf field going in, and so I'm hoping to do some programming on there as well. And sports seem to be the other big thing. I've had conversations with Unwind with Art to talk about partnerships on how we can work together with art programming, because again, we don't want to be offering the same programming going on and neither one of us be successful with it, so they're really good at that. So if we can send our instructors over there, and they're going to come over and do some stuff with our kids too for free, and so that will be good. And there's other ones in the work too. The Elks Bunker, the Veterans Bunker, I'm really trying to get in with Alta and talk about how we can facilitate some programming together, as well as the Senior Center. So instead of trying to develop my own things, partnerships is where it's at, but it takes a while to form those partnerships and that trust, and also just to get the program going. It's a lot of work to schedules and all that. So each session I try to pick 2 new people to see how we can partner together. We're working with Susie at the Columbia County with the public health, talking about ways that we can apply for grants and stuff there too. So I've been focusing on the early childhood meetings, the trauma-informed network meetings, health coalition, and so those are the meetings that I go to monthly and make connections there.
I like what you have been doing. I can speak for the entire council. We like the direction that you're going. We appreciate all your effort. We know you probably don't hear that enough.
Thank you.
And it's a tough job. It just is. We know that. So you still have a smile on your face.
I do. It's been good. I worked with about 130 kids last week, so I'm a little under the weather today. The handout that I gave you guys is another thing that I'm doing. It is a junior rec assistant program. So I've been working with a few of my colleagues that are in the recreation field, and they have programs like that where they have kiddos ages 13 to 15 come and tag along with us while we do things. There's different kind of monitoring. They don't get to be along with kids or anything like that, but they get to help set up different activities, and hopefully it will filter them into our employment pool, and we'll already have some trained staff, or just keep them out of trouble for summertime. So there is a cost. It's $50 a week, and that provides them with all their meals and their admissions to everything, but we think it will give them a really good experience and be able to have those middle schoolers that really aren't doing nothing in the summertime, or the ones who aren't, can come and work with us.
So if people signed up for a junior rec assistant, would that be a week at a time?
Yeah, so we would ask for a week commitment at a time, just so we.
Not the whole summer.
No, not the whole summer, and there will be an application process. It's not gonna be like contingent on if you get straight A's or things like that, but just that you have a commitment, that you have in some capacity wanted to work with kids or have worked with kids, and then we'll go from there, so.
I just wanted to ask a couple follow-up questions.
Yeah.
If I get to that,
Yeah.
a little bit about it.
Yep, and that's not fully developed, that's a very rough draft.
Contact Shauna.
Yep, contact me.
Well, good job. I like that you're linking up with other community players out there because it serves our community very well, and no kid should be left behind. And it's not just about kids, it's about adults too. So,
I have one more follow-up question.
Yeah.
Have you done tours of other community centers?
I have, yeah, I've been to like 3 other ones, and anytime I go to a training, I try to go, and we're very fortunate. A lot of places don't have community centers, so we're really.
I've done the ones on the east side, not very many on the west side.
I've been to Sandy, the Longview one we went to, the Longview Link we've been to. Yeah, and a few other ones too.
Yeah, my folks, that Riverside love Mount Scott. They have the
I haven't been
dances.
to that one,
They
but
have
I've
the
seen it
dances,
online.
And they have a pretty extensive aquatic center.
Yeah.
okay,
Did you have something?
Can I comment on a couple things?
sure can.
So, about 8 years ago, when I went down there to trying to get a teen center here, and we kept running into all the roadblocks, but the biggest roadblock was not having a physical address. Once you have a physical address, there are tons of program grants out there for certain programs. Basically, drugs and alcohol are the 2 big ones, especially with the Gates Foundation. They have tons of money. So, and that's something that we were figuring that was like from 2 to 7, because you're right, it covers the kids before their parents get home or whatever, and it covers the kids that are having issues and hopefully some mentors that come in and that type of stuff and whatnot. So, at that time, we had somebody from Community Mental Health, the school board, there was a person from CAT there, and then I was there from the city, and then Jean Lewis was also there, who she's passed away several years ago, but she was involved with the teen court over here and whatnot, so she was very involved with all the teenagers. Well, and we also had 3 students on the committee because they were the main focus. It's what they wanted. So there's a driving force out there because there's a huge need for it. And like I say, now that we have this physical address, maybe that opens up a lot of doors for us. And also partners.
There might be, just to kind of dovetail on what he's saying, is when those conversations came up at youth council, it was those kids at the high school that don't typically access your services. It's possible that the resource officer might know those individuals that, we had story after story in youth council of not kids that are themselves at risk, but siblings, best friends, and people they felt they had lost.
The kids that were on our committee were from the leadership group. I
Right,
mean,
they
they weren't kids that needed the help. They
Right,
were the
but they
ones that
just
saw
knew
the need
They
for the
knew
help.
people.
Yeah, they thought that was a huge problem in the high school, and it is.
So kind of just so you have an idea of my thought process with all of this and how I prioritize is the high school is next on my list for kind of getting into. First was the elementary and then the middle and I try to get those all going and doing really well and staffing that I can leave there so that I can do, and high school is a big picture next type of opportunity. We've even talked to Scott Stockwell about being in the high school more, especially if they get their funding or whatnot. And then there's a youth drop that is looking to start out here and has some grant money that I've reached out to because they've had some roadblocks to see if we can start something now going. And I haven't heard back from them yet, but I think that would be a great opportunity. And you're right, the teens definitely need that support. So we are.
But it isn't just the high schoolers either, it's the middle schoolers also.
Yeah.
But, I believe it was right when Scott came on is when we were doing all this going on. He was behind it. In fact, he offered us a school room.
Yeah.
But the kids did not want a school room.
Yeah.
They said it's gotta be off-site.
Anyways, good job.
I attended the National League of Cities National Convention along with, Susan?
I think so. I think it was Susan.
And you? attended the Families in Government, and with that, they brought their teenagers. And the teenagers were involved in exactly what Gene Lewis was starting. They were all seemed to be involved in the teen courts. And I think that's really big.
Yes.
I was involved in that for a bit in this community as a victim. And I went in and had a hearing. Somebody broke into the farmhouse and destroyed a lot of the property. But the teen court was so effective, and I was so impressed with that. So that's a great thing that I think that Keith brought up, and or I'd advocate for that as a program to go ahead on, as well as the youth council directing their.
Yeah, it's all one big team. It's awesome.
Just thought I'd throw that in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Kathy, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Tina? No Tina, I guess. John?
Yeah, a couple things. I don't know, we need to fully deliberate. You guys supposed to be on the presentation we had earlier from the developer properties, but one of the takeaways I got was that there's work on cities we have to do here still, and developing the funding strategies. And we've done some work in some of these areas. There's the funding strategies, the understanding the public utilities, particularly this smaller ask here, whether the road's a lot shorter. Grant, I just learned today, actually just a few minutes ago before the meeting there, the announcement for the funding for the 2020 build grant. We were kind of reserving our position on whether or not we'd go after a grant again to see what the economic climate was, what the funding amount, what the priorities were. Just strolling through them real briefly here. That when we first went out, it was $1.5 billion was on the table. Then the last cycle was $750 million. It was half that program. This year it's going to go up to $1 billion. It looks like still a priority on rural projects, so at least half the projects will go to rural. There's other more specific criteria that frankly didn't have an opportunity to read yet because I was just looking at it for the first time. But that may be an opportunity. Jenny and I were talking early this morning on an opportunity from the state that's announced for through the trails. That might be a piece of that. We could fund the boardwalk in the next couple of months. But we're not slowing down and trying to work on the pieces that need to be done on the city's behalf here. But it's just hearing the developer talk about parcelization and getting the city pieces figured out was meant a lot to me. We have dug out 2 years ago the proposal that we had used to the development, and I don't want to talk too much about this, but I would welcome to talk more in depth at either a future meeting or workshops with counselors and things.
John, on the waterfront, on the front page, we still have this old picture, which just doesn't help us when we're talking about new things. I mean, we ought to try to keep a little cooler on old ideas, keep resurfacing in print or in visualization. And I don't think you put it in, I think that's a.
Right, yeah, right. They didn't ask us for a.
I know, as I say, but it's, getting hit behind the knees every time we do something isn't fun.
So that looks encouraging. On other matters, Rachel and I have been working with council goals, trying to work through the department goals, to kind of feed into and mesh with the council goals. Process improvement meetings are scheduled internally in community development to keep that workflow going. Matt and I have been working closely with some department heads on budgets, and some counselors. St. Helens Industrial Business Park, we had our kickoff meeting last Friday to talk about the utility design and parcelization of that property. Had a really good meeting. The secondary phase, or the 20-some some acres that we're looking at. I tasked them with giving a proposal to look at doing a grading and drainage plan for the areas that we've done the topographic survey, and that'll be one piece of a permit-ready, getting closer to a permittable project. There'll be an environmental piece that goes along with that, understanding the buffers and constraints there. Tomorrow at the port, they're having the rail study kickoff meeting at 9 o'clock over there. I will stop in to get some input on that. Things like the grade separation, and that's a lot of what's known right now as far as the need for grade separation to relocating Switch Yard. We'll make sure that it stays at the front of the list there. And we're winding down with our brownfields program, with the community-wide assessment funding that we've used to do phase 1 and phase 2 environmental analysis around the community. Most communities have a hard time expending all that funding, but we've managed to place all of that funding in before the grant is expired. So we may ask the council to re-up that program, because it seems to have been doing exactly what it's intended to do, is get properties that are challenged back on the tax rolls. And that comes up later in the year in December is when those applications come in. And
Tina, would you like to come up? Do you got anything to report? Nothing? Okay. I'm gonna skip council reports, and we're gonna take a 20-minute break. I'm gonna walk down to, between our executive session, I'm going to, you're welcome to join me, walk down to the riverfront and go out to about where the hotel's gonna sit. I just feel the need to. It's a nice day. 20 minutes, we'll re-adjourn for executive session. We have a lot of stuff to go over, and I need a break. It's important stuff, so.
I have a question. Will we have an attorney here for our executive session?
There was none scheduled. The information produced comes from the attorneys.
If an attorney isn't here, I'm not going to be here. I just thought I'd tell you that. And we need an attorney. In the statutes, it says an attorney should be available in the ORS. So it says right in there. So I'm not going to get, I don't want to get nailed for another ethical thing that is something that is overlooked. And so I'm just suggesting I won't be here.
Okay, it should be available, is what it says?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll read it if you want.
Well, I'm gonna adjourn right now.
Okay.
Because I need a break, and from now on, these meetings, if they're going at 3 or 3:30, we're taking a 15-minute break.
Okay.
Somewhere in that, wherever it feels comfortable, that's just the way it's gonna be. All right, so for now, we're adjourned, and we'll be in executive session here in 20 minutes.